And budget is everything in this game. Like
It
for
is.
instance, to me, one of the rawest dudes to ever pick up a camera was Hype Williams.
Yes.
And Hype
Shout out to
Williams,
Hype.
he got a chance to do Belly, and he went dramatically over budget,
Yes.
and still didn't get. Like some people watch Belly critical, and I'd be like, you can't really critique Belly because if you really listen to Hype, there were so many things that wanted to be added in. Like Nas was supposed to there were supposed to be parts in Africa with Nas. There was supposed to be
no African shots at all.
The interaction between DMX and the minister was really way more pronounced. There was way more, and it showed how DMX was supposed to go from I'm just getting close to him to killing to actually being a true convert.
Right.
But the minister knew all along, like maybe 30-40% of the movie got cut.
Yeah. And I believe that. As a filmmaker, I know that's how it happens.
And basically, they never really gave Hype another chance at doing the movie.
And clearly they didn't even shoot the scenes and have a director's cut. Right. Nobody's never saw none of those scenes you talking about.
They just in the script.
They but nobody, they never got
shot. It would have been so much more of an epic film.
It would have.
Back in the days when I was a kid, there was a movie called Heaven's Gate.
Yes.
And Heaven's Gate actually bankrupted the studio.
Oh. Damn.
And I actually saw a version of it. It was about an hour and a half, right? And it was a completely idiotic movie. And they invested so much money and it flopped so badly that the studio literally went out of business.
Yeah.
Well, as an adult, they restored the full actual cinematic version. Like I said, the version I saw was an hour and a half. The full movie was actually 3 hours.
Oh, geez.
So they cut 50% of the movie.
Yeah.
So there was plot lines that didn't make any sense. There was characters that appeared and never saw again. But then the full story was like, oh, this is almost a masterpiece.
Yeah.
But somebody at the studio said, we over budget. Nobody's going to sit in the theater for 3 hours and watch this. And so they massacred it and it flopped.
Right.
And that's how I view Belly, that if only he could have shot the full vision.
Yeah.
But what amazes me, though, is that he never got another chance to do another one. Same thing with Matty Rich with the
Matty Rich. I remember Matty Rich.
Like all these raw cats, and that's the kind of curse. Like right now we're independent, but we both know that if we ever get a shot at the big money, we really might only got
one shot.
Yeah.
You got one shot. And you better make it work. You better, something better happen with this one shot because you don't get a second. Matter of fact, speaking of Hype Williams, it's like, I don't remember Hype. I remember his career damn near being over after Belly. Like, I don't remember him doing a lot of music videos and none of that stuff.
Right.
Which was weird because he had done hundreds of music videos leading up to Belly.
And music videos is such a limited genre. For him to be so raw, that told me that he was really a visionary.
Yeah, he was more.
You know?
I always put him. This why I always. I know he was a film director and music director, but I always seen him more as a cinematographer.
Yeah,
because he saw the vision.
Yeah, things looked a certain way.
Everything looked a certain way. So I always saw him that way because I always said that, like, if I did a film and I wanted to make it more artistic, that's what I would go for as my actual DP. I would get Hype Williams to be my DP.
And speaking of cinematographers, I was looking at this person right here, Ernest Dickerson. He was Spike Lee's. He made Spike movies look so good that somebody finally said, well, dog, what you got? And that movie became Juice.
Right.
Which gave the birth of.
Yes, indeed. So let's get back to the piece of the action. So Manny's girlfriend, Nikki, her parents pop up out of nowhere, which is kind of shady. You know, they pop up at Manny's house and they have an issue with Manny sleeping with their daughter, Nikki, because they're not married.
It's the 70s.
It's the 70s. And also, Manny looks like he's like mid-40s. Nikki look like she mid-20s. There's like a huge age difference.
Manny was getting to the bag, though.
Manny was getting to the bag, and Nikki saw, I got the sugar daddy right here. I'm about to shack up with him. And Nikki wasn't tripping.
But him and Pops was about, they went to school together.
Right. So that I think that's what kind of, other than them not being married, I think that also kind of might have what pissed off the mama too. Like, You an older dude smashing my baby.
Yeah, you gotta make her respectable.
Yeah, you gotta put a ring on her finger. We understand what's going on, but put a ring on her finger. So the moms was big tripping. You know, and they were church people because I think the dad was a pastor. So they came there with the aunt Walona from Good Times.
Yep. Who was acting in the big Cab Calloway's daughter.
Right.
And that was that era, for context for the youngsters, that was an era where the pops would come to you, what are your intentions to my daughter?
What are your intentions? You had to go to pops to get to the girl.
Yeah.
Back then. Like, you wasn't just
You couldn't pull up and honk. You couldn't pull up and say, hey, I'm outside.
No.
You had to park the car, get knocked. Pops come to the door first. Then you got to sit there. She's dressed. She's upstairs dressed, but Pop's got to have a few moments with you before.
He done already told her, sit in your room for 15 minutes. I need to talk to this dude.
Yeah, I need to see what's happening with him.
That's how stuff used to be. So we get to a scene where Barbara, who was Cheryl Lee Ralph, she goes off on the teacher, Mrs. Thomas. And this goes back to Cheryl Lee Ralph, the overacting. This scene was about 5 minutes of dialogue. And she was going off on Mrs. Thomas. But
I mean, to the point of, woo.
She made her cry. She made Mrs. Thomas cry. Said she had a vibrator at home. Like, this is the 70s. You can't be talking about vibrators. You can't be a student telling the teacher, go home to your vibrator in the 70s. That was crazy.
And let me qualify that. If you ever see 5 minutes of dialogue in one of my movies, it was filler. A distribution company must have said, we need this movie to be 80 minutes. And I looked up and it was 72.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a lot.
Somebody about to give a monologue.
That's a lot. That scene was about 5 minutes. And then it ended with Mrs. Thomas running out crying. She went to the cafeteria. Then Manny went behind her and was telling her, trying to calm her down and saying everything's going to be okay. And at this point, she was literally begging Manny to help her because she couldn't handle them kids, especially Barbara. Barbara was
off the hinges.
Barbara was a spark plug to a whole bunch of shit in that class.
A lot of it was completely like, all right, I see why you've been having problems in life.